Welcome to this Florida Department of Transportation training. Demographic Analysis Steps is part of a video series providing guidance for sociocultural effects evaluations for transportation projects. To assist practitioners in performing a project demographic analysis, the department has developed 3 videos. The first video discusses demographic analysis as the foundation of the sociocultural effects evaluation. The second video identifies various data used to inform the analysis. This video provides a 6-step methodology for conducting a project-level demographic analysis. These videos and others covering all aspects of the sociocultural effects evaluation process are available on the department's website. For a project demographic analysis, we start with a big picture view of who is in the project area today and trends shaping the area's future to get a sense of who could be affected. Then we take a deeper look at the data to see how population groups are geographically distributed and who might not be showing up in the data, to gain a more definitive awareness of who could be affected. In the final part of the analysis, we document our findings and the data and methodologies used to assess who could be affected. Performing a demographic analysis includes 6 steps: selecting census geographies that conform to our preliminary analysis area, obtaining demographic data, organizing and analyzing the data, verifying the data, summarizing the findings, and documenting what we have learned to inform the project evaluation and decision-making. In the first step, we determine the geographic focus of the analysis. The analysis area should encompass the area where there is potential for negative effects on communities as a result of the project. The analysis also examines the demographics of a larger reference community. To define a preliminary analysis area, review data maps of the area surrounding the project. Notice if the project traverses an urban area, a rural one, or possibly a combination of both. Look for nearby cities or other human settlements and consider how the project might affect those communities. In a rural setting, the project may serve as the primary connection between homes and destinations over a wide area, and affected populations could sit well away from the project itself. In an urban setting, the transportation network will be more dense, and potentially affected communities are more likely to be focused near the project. Get a big picture view of the project area by reviewing the Sociocultural data report generated for the project on the department's environmental screening tool. The SDR contains aggregated census and other data for the area within 500 feet of the project alternative. Also included is demographic data for the county where the project is located to serve as a statistical reference. SDRs can also be generated for a customized area of interest. These arrows point out where to find project SDRs on the Environmental Screening Tool public site. The site address is shown at the bottom of the slide. More instruction on navigating this tool is provided in a video on the department's SCE evaluation process webpage. These URLs will be shown again at the end of this video. A sociocultural data report for a customized area can be created with the Area of Interest tool on the main Environmental Screening Tool site. This feature is useful for looking at a broad area during plan making when contextual information about projects is first being gathered. For especially long projects, the tool allows segmenting of the project and generation of more fine-grained SDRs for each segment. Access to the Area of Interest tool requires authorization from the district ETDM coordinator. More information on using the Area of Interest tool is provided in a video on the department's SCE evaluation process webpage. After reviewing the aggregated SDR data, we shift our focus to more fine-grained census data to learn about the demographic characteristics in distinct locations of a preliminary analysis area. But first, we need to define an area for which demographic data will be collected and analyzed. Start off by reviewing the data spatially using a data map viewer, such as the department's Environmental Screening Tool or US EPA's EJ Screen. The analysis area should encompass all population groups having potential for negative effects as a result of the project, including indirect effects. From the map viewer, select the census block groups surrounding the project that should be included in the analysis area. Because of geographic size and types of data available, the block group is the preferred census unit for a project demographic analysis. Census tracts tend to be too large for the data to tell us specifically about population groups in the vicinity of a project, and blocks do not provide all the data we need for the analysis, such as household income. For the analysis area boundary, we can use a grouping of census geographies The project in this example spans both urban and rural context. Census tracts are shown on the map with dark red lines. We can see how large they are, especially in the rural western portion of the project, as highlighted on the slide. Census block groups can also be quite large in a rural area. Notice the dark purple lines. Blocks, outlined here in light purple, tend to be small, conforming to a subdivision block or a grouping of approximately 100 people. Although a good scale for learning about populations in discrete locations, which we would want to know if the area has potential for effects, block data is reported only once every 10 years, so quickly becomes dated. Also, as mentioned before, income-related data is not reported at this hyperlocal level. More on this topic is included in the data module in this video series. Looking at the block groups adjacent to the project, we can see what the analysis area would look like if we selected block groups to define the analysis area. If potential exists for adverse project effects, especially an effect focused in a particular location, we should review the block data to know more about the population groups in that location. Now let's go over some considerations for delineating the analysis area using a project buffer. For a buffer area, the most proximate census geographies will need to be reconciled to the buffer using one of three methods. The first method is the intersection method. Data from the census geographies lying within or intersecting the buffer are included in the analysis. Data from any census geographies extending outside the buffer are also included, so the intersection method has the potential to overestimate the data. I'll point out that this method is used for the project GIS analysis results generated in the environmental screening tool. Interpolation is another method for reconciling the data to a buffer. This method clips the census geographies to conform to the buffer boundary. Data from clipped census geographies are estimated assuming an equal area distribution of the data. If the population is not spread uniformly across the census geography, such as where there is a large water body or a forest, the interpolation method could result in over- or underestimating. This method is used to generate sociocultural data reports, with adjustments to reduce skewing from unequal population distributions. Containment includes only census geographies that are entirely contained within the analysis area. Notice the large areas that would be excluded from the analysis. Therefore, this method has a tendency to underestimate actual conditions. Containment is most useful for evaluating large swaths of land typical in corridor planning. When deciding on which methodology to use for the buffer analysis, consider the size and shape of the block groups surrounding the project and where potentially affected populations reside. Look at the existing land use data and an aerial map to see where people are located in the area. Consider how the intersection, interpolation, and containment methodologies would treat the demographic data and ultimately the analysis results. Then select the methodology you deem most suitable for the analysis. Demographic data is also collected for a reference community, which serves as a basis of comparison to the analysis area. Knowing how the two areas compare demographically helps us later when determining whether potential project effects and benefits would be equitably distributed. When selecting the appropriate reference community, we have a few choices. The county or counties in which a project is located can serve as the reference community. You could also use the census tracts encompassing the analysis area by aggregating the census tract data. Keep in mind that the relevancy of a reference community to the analysis area decreases with distance from the project, so using census tracts might make more sense if the county is geographically large. Now that we have defined a preliminary analysis area, the next step is to obtain census data and other demographic data for the area and the selected reference community. For census data, we'll need block group data from the American Community Survey 5-year dataset for the latest published year. To identify trends, the ACS 5-year dataset for 2005 to 2009 is useful. This was the first full reporting of the ACS 5-year estimates, so it's a good dataset for comparison to the 2010-2014 dataset. Also download the 100% counts from the last 3 U.S. censuses for assessing trends. Collect supplemental data as needed. Learn more about data sources in the Demographic Analysis Data video on the SCE Evaluation Process webpage. After collecting the data we need, we are ready to organize and make sense of the data. This spreadsheet layout shows one way of organizing the census data. The first column lists the data subjects and the dataset ID numbers. The year of the dataset is shown in the second column. The ID numbers and data for block groups in the analysis area are shown in the center columns. The final column includes the same data subject for the reference community. Reviewing the data over the different time frames tells us about how the area may have changed, giving us an indication of trends and future change. Comparisons to the reference community shows that the block group or area as a whole differs significantly from the reference community. Mapping the data is essential to seeing the distribution of population groups and other population characteristics in relation to the project. The fourth step in the analysis is to verify the compiled data to ensure it is comprehensive, current, and accurate. We want to make sure that the data we've collected accurately portrays the community. To do this, review the compiled census data to see if it looks consistent with what you have learned about the community so far. Consider if the project area has changed in recent years. Is there a new development in the area? Keep in mind that U.S. Census Bureau data lags by at least a year, which is another reason why field review of the area and community outreach are integral parts of the demographic analysis. Some population groups have a history of being undercounted, including people who are homeless, people of color, and people with lower incomes. Issues surrounding mailing, filling out the census questionnaire, and distrust of how the information will be used are some of the reasons for undercounts. And, as we know, the census does not count visiting populations such as students, employees, customers, and second homeowners. Verify the data with the assistance of knowledgeable locals. Talk to planners with the school district and local government. People providing social services in the area typically have an in-depth knowledge of who is in the community on a permanent or temporary basis. Other potentially knowledgeable sources are church leaders, neighborhood organizations, the Chamber of Commerce, and local businesses and employers. In the next step, we summarize the data to support the project evaluation and decision-making. By summarizing the data we have compiled is to point out the need-to-know information. This will help others involved in the project understand what is material to the environmental evaluation. Describe the demographic character and trends in the area and identify populations of special concern. Describe how the various population groups are distributed throughout the area. Briefly describe the methodology used for the analysis, where the data came from, including the census geographies used, and the year the data was collected. As you are summarizing the data, think about ways to highlight significant details from the analysis using visuals. Tables and charts make it easier to compare and contrast the analysis area and reference community or show changes over time. Maps can convey the geographic distribution of population groups in relation to the project and potential effect areas. Photographs bring words to life. The objective of your summary is to present the information so the reader will not miss important details. Ultimately, the demographic analysis for the project will be incorporated into the project environmental document, and related materials will be added to the project file. The environmental document for all project class of action types should include information about the demographic character of the study area. So should final project documentation prepared in the planning phase. The level of detail provided will vary depending on the complexity of the project, potential for community effects, and the type of document being prepared. If a project is uncontroversial with low impact potential, you could attach a copy of the project sociocultural data report. For complex projects having potential for community impacts, the demographic analysis results should be reported in a separate sociocultural effects technical memorandum. Part 2, Chapter 9 of the PD&E Manual provides more information about documentation for project development. The SCE video series includes modules on preparing documents for both phases. To support project decision-making in future project phases and to create the basis for the administrative record should one ever be needed, all of the information compiled during the demographic analysis is stored in the project file. The project file provides evidence that community characteristics were investigated and given consideration during the project evaluation. Learn more about the project file in the Public Involvement chapter of the department's PD&E manual. This concludes the training on demographic analysis steps. If you have any questions or suggestions, please contact Dr. Rusty Ennemoser, State Public Involvement and Community Resources Coordinator. Links to resources referenced in this video will be shown after this slide. Thank you for viewing this production of the Florida Department of Transportation. Enjoy the rest of your day.